If you crawl around the anarchistic regions of the internet, you will hear about statism. A statist is obviously someone who likes the state. Right? Wrong. The problem here is the wording. Statist is derived from state, and anyone knows what a state is, so anyone thinks he knows what a statist is. If you look up the English Wikipedia, well, there is really reason to think that. The term is there so broadly formulated, so broad that it basically means anything but an anarchist. But in German we use different words. The word that would be derived one by one from this translation from statist would be Staatsist, from Staat, but we instead use an additional word, Etatist, derived from the French word for state. This leads to people researching at least this one word because they don't know what it means. Does this mean that Germans know this concept better? Oh no, not in the slightest, sadly. However, I will use these words to break the link from this one word, state and statist. Etatism is an idea back from the 1880s. It pretty much states that a group of individuals is not really fit to solve the big problems, but the state is, and should therefore be responsible for any problem solution in a group. So if we have our economic access here, and we have 100% is in private hands here, and on the other hand 100% is in the hand of the state, the collective, the group, whatever, then the etatists are over here in the far extreme. Does this make them necessarily communists? Oh no, you can argue etatism from the point that a king should have anything and just lend it to its people. The feudal system is pretty much etatistic in nature, but in sharp contrast to communism, at least in the basic philosophy, although similar in the outcome. Anarchists use the word statist very often, and often in the sense of etatists. For them, pretty much anyone who believes in a state and the necessity to have a state is for them a hard statist, which is false. As for the Antifa, anyone who is not far left is somehow a Nazi. It's the same basic error. A minarchist, such as myself, who thinks that very basic concepts such as border security and protection of property is something that we can use a state for, and that therefore a limited state has a reason to exist, is not an etatist, not really a hard statist, in the same sense as that someone who believes in borders is not a Nazi. So where are the limits? Well, good question. Political philosophy does not like figures and numbers, but I do. So an anarchist wants 0% might and power and taxes, which is all essentially the same, in the hand of the state. So if you are okay with 1% taxes, you are not an anarchist anymore, you become then a minarchist. And you stay a minarchist until you reach something of about, let's say, 5%, perhaps 10% taxes might whatsoever. If you go beyond that, you are in the range of the modern states. So we could use the word statism here with good conscience, but if you go further, when the state has control of, let's say, 80% or more, then we are talking about hard statism, about etatism. And yeah, I know that you Americans love your extremes, black and white and 1 and 0, but it is essential to understand that most of us are in a spectrum. You can't say that a minarchist is the same thing as a communist. I mean, you can, but it makes you look a little bit silly and you look like a fundamentalist who sees the world just in good and evil. There are gray areas, and it's important to understand how far someone is away from their own position. I argued a bit with Mr. Dapperton in our video series about that, and I argued that we want basically in the same direction. We both want less state. He just wants even less. But even if we reach just my personal goal, he would have won too. Not completely, but he would have won. So I think it is important not to fight people who want in the same direction. It is often more important to work towards the same direction than towards the absolutely same goal. And to do that, we have to use a more exact language. Thanks for listening, like, share and subscribe, and have a wonderful day.